and welcome to my segment Fit Tips with Roxie. I'm your host, Roxie Beckles. This is a new segment that I'm adding to my website, Muscle is the New Sexy, and I'm hoping that with this video series I'm able to answer some questions that you guys have pertaining to your program, to your nutrition, your training, anything that you have been wondering about when it comes to how to properly do these things and get real results. Now, I understand that a lot of my audience, a lot of you women out there and guys too that are watching, are a little bit more on the advanced side when it comes to your training. Maybe you've been working out for a while and you just need to learn how to switch things up to continue to see results. And I'm hoping that these segments that I do and the blog posts that I write on my site help you to kind of figure some things out. Now, I always like to point out that these things are based off of my own opinions. They are science and evidence-based, so any of the things that I talk about in any of my video segments or any of my blogs can definitely be looked up and researched on your own, and I encourage you to do that because we're all so very different. And although a lot of the things that I voice my opinion about I've seen in action not only with my own body but through that of my clients and people that I've worked with over the last couple of years, it's always important for you to do further research and to apply things to yourself to see what works best before going ahead and drawing your own conclusions. So hopefully I'm able to leave you with a little bit of food for thought. Today's segment is a real treat. I'm going to go a little bit more into detail with program design, and specifically program design as it pertains to muscle building. This question comes from Felicia from Facebook. Felicia is wondering how to best use her time in the gym as far as program design is concerned when it does come to building muscle. Great question, Felicia, because I think that's one of the biggest areas of confusion that a lot of people have, but hopefully I can clear some of this up for you today. Now, I personally like to take a very systematic approach to program design. I like more progressive type of training, so I tend to go in steps with things. First and foremost, before embarking on any strength training program, I really feel like it's important for you to establish a base for training. Now, for most of you guys out there that are a little bit more advanced, it's basically going to be for you spending anywhere between 2 to 4 weeks in a solid program that's more designed for stabilization, that's more designed for muscular endurance. As far as loads and lifting and all other stuff is concerned, basically you're going to be lifting more lighter to moderate loads over about a rep range of anywhere between 15 to up to 20 to 25 reps. Now, I know that might sound like a high number of reps for most people, but again, the idea behind this phase of training, if you will, is all about building an established base for which more advanced training will happen. One of the most important things that you want to think about when you're going into any program is injury prevention. A lot of times the injuries that we see in the gym later on down the line with people lifting heavy weights and stuff like that has to do with the fact that their bodies were not ready to meet the demands on which they're trying to place it. So thinking about building that base by starting off a little bit slower is always a good idea, no matter what level that you're at. And in fact, we're going to talk about how even in your muscle building program, you're going to have phases where you're going to go into what is called deloading, where you would use these lighter weights and cycle back into these higher rep type of training modes. So it's always great to start off with that. So once you've cycled through a nice 4-week phase of just building that established base of stabilization, it's time for you to really rock it out and get that heavy training going in the gym. As a general rule of thumb, hypertrophy training, muscle building, putting on mass, building lean muscle, whatever you want to call it, but for our intents and purposes, we're going to call it hypertrophy training. For the guidelines for hypertrophy training is that lifting anywhere between the rep ranges of about 8 to 12 reps is enough to elicit the responsive growth within the muscle. I personally like to broaden that spectrum and say lifting anywhere between 6 to up to about 12 reps will give you enough fire and umph to be able to push through and see the gains that you want to see in the gym. Not only are you going to see increases in muscle size, but you'll also be seeing increases in overall strength as well, especially when you're working in those lower rep ranges. A note about things, can you go below 6 reps? Of course you can. You can do anything you damn well please in the gym. However, when you're going into that lower rep range, you're basically focusing more on maximal strength. And I mean, depending on what your goals are and if that's an important thing for you to work on in the gym, definitely go there, definitely push for it. For the most part, for most of my clientele and for myself included, I'm not always in that mindset to work towards those kinds of gains. I'm more or less working towards the aesthetics of just building symmetry, building size. So I tend not to go that way all the time, but maybe 1 or 2 workouts a week, I will go ahead and push down to 1 rep, 2 reps, 3 reps, all the way up to 5 reps. But that's just a matter of discretion. When it comes to frequency, again, that's one of those things that's really going to be based upon your program design and your goals. So for the purposes of, let's say you're looking to build muscle in order to bring out certain body parts that may be a little bit lagging. Maybe you want a wider back and rounder shoulders, you want nice peaked biceps, or you want great thighs. Doing a more split routine type of approach, a typical kind of strength training bodybuilding kind of approach, may work well for you. How you decide to do your split is totally up to you. I think most people make a bigger deal out of a training split than there needs to be. Hey, listen, to me it's like this: if you are training within the rep ranges that you're supposed to, if you're allowing your body enough time to recover, not only in between sets but in rest days after your workouts, you're going to see gains no matter what. So setting up your split in a way that works for you is what you should consider doing. Personally, I like to put my compound big giant motions in the beginning of the week when I tend to have more energy, and then taper off to supplementary muscles such as, smaller muscle groups, biceps, triceps, whatever, single body parts a little bit later on in the week when I pretty much have less energy and I'm completely fried. But how you set up your splits, again, it's completely up to you. One of the things that elicits growth in the body as far as programs are concerned is not only your frequency in the gym, it's not only how heavy you're pushing, it's not only about the rest periods and tempo and stuff like that, which we will get to, but it is, I just said it, it's about tempo as well, time under tension. So for the most part, when your goal is muscle building, you gotta put the muscle under tension over time. A lot of times in the gym you see people explosively lifting and stuff like that, which is all good and well, but changing things up and adding a different kind of response to the body, something that it may not have expected or something that you may not do on the regular basis, is a great way to elicit and force the body to change. Notice I use the word elicit a lot because that's what it's all about. It's about bringing new elements to your workout that's going to force your body to have to adapt. That's where change comes from. So when it comes to lifting and your lifting speed in the gym, a lot of that is going to affect how your body responds, grows, and progresses. So I'd like to say to you, instead of doing a mindless, 1, 2, 3, whatever, whenever you're in the gym working out, change the tempo from time to time, okay? Instead, why don't you try a 2-0-2-0 pace? Let's take the bicep curl, for instance. If you're doing a bicep curl and you're doing 2-0-2-0 pace, basically that means you're going to have two counts on the concentric, 2 counts on the eccentric, no holds in between. Putting the muscle under tension over some time, forcing it to adapt and to work with something completely new than just going ahead and banging it out. There are a myriad of other ways that you can play around with. You can play around with negatives or eccentric loading, whereas the emphasis of the work is actually on the eccentric phase or the negative phase of the movement. So in the case of a bicep curl, if you're squeezing up, you can hold for a count or 2 and then try to come slowly down in 4 counts, 3 counts, 2 counts, whatever. But working on different phases of motion also help to elicit growth as well. So adding those kinds of variables are definitely other ways that you can challenge your workouts that don't necessarily have to do with simply upping a weight. I guarantee that over time you'll definitely see your body starting to respond in a way it hasn't as yet, since it's never been necessarily introduced to this kind of work.